Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming back on and joining us, guys. We've got a really good session today. We've got a really good topic, good chat. We want you all to be getting involved with us. Thank you. Hi, DBA Projects. Hi, how you feeling? Hope you're doing all good. So this week, if you haven't seen the news or, opened a newspaper, you will see that knife crime has been absolutely disgusting this week. 18 in a week to total. Today's front page says Broken Britain. Hi Lauren, welcome back, good to see you. So yes, I think today more than ever it's going to be so relevant to be talking about the knife crime that we're surrounded with right now. How has it got this bad in 1 week? 18 all over the country as well. There's not just one specific place, and there'll never be just one specific reason. And we are just getting labelled broken. Well, we're here and we want to try and find a way to fix it. Obviously, we're not going to be able to fix it all in one day, but discussing it and all being on it together and trying to find solutions and ways that we could probably make society that bit better. Hi, I am somebody. Hi. Thanks, AJ92, appreciate that. So we need to basically, as a group, collectively, to be discussing, this issue, why we think it's getting so bad, what we could be doing to prevent it, how we could prevent it. If you just turn your telly on today, you'll see. This is what our kids are growing up with. I'll give you an example. I have a 16-year-old niece and she has Snapchat and social media. And all week her phone is just full of videos of stabbings, and I don't know if anyone see the video of Hyde Park at the start of the week. And basically now it's becoming a thing to share these videos around. So not only is this happening on our doorstep, it is then being filmed and exposed to all the other young people, which, even though we're sharing this information, it's now becoming a regular to just pass on this video and send it around. When I was younger, if someone had sent me a video of someone being stabbed, I would have been scared. That would have frightened the life out of me. What worries me is now how normal this has become. So, DBA Projects, I can just see your comment there. High Park Mum disgusting, families and kids around. I would think if my niece or someone asked to go to Hyde Park, I would be saying yes. I believe that's a safe park. Then I looked at this video and it's absolutely shocking how normal it was to be running around the park stabbing each other. Now, what a lot of people might have not seen is across the road there was a protest. It was something to do with lockdown. It was like a far right's protest. Across the road there was hundreds of police dealing with protesters. And then across the road there's hundreds of kids killing each other and there was not one police in sight. Not at the beginning, obviously at the end there was, but this is all going on. And before the police or even ambulances got there, these kids are laying on the grass, they're half dead. So no one's really got a chance. Kids are getting on buses to Hyde Park. They're on their bikes. They've got that machete, and I don't mean like a little kitchen knife. I mean massive machetes, and they have took that out the house with them to the park. So if I left the house with a big machete, what would you be doing with that machete? So I think it all starts from the minute you wake up in the morning and you make that choice. If you decide that you're going to put your trainers on to go for a run, you put your trainers on, you go for a run. If you put a big machete in your knife in your rucksack, what actually are you going to be doing with that machete? So the fact that the kids can even leave the house and think it's acceptable to be walking on the streets with the machete and with a knife, I don't know when that become normal. I'm going to bring on Andy to join us to start with. Andy, just bear with me. And Andy should be joining us. Thank you all for joining us today. Hi, Andy.
Hiya. Hi, Vicky. Glad to have you back.
Good to be back.
Yeah. It's been a really mad couple of weeks, especially over the last week. It's been insane what's going on. What's the world come to? When we were young.
June the 3rd, we started the first stabbing, and we've ended this week on 18, all around the country.
It's insane. When we were younger, I know everyone keeps saying when I was younger, but it's not that too far a world apart. you know, I'm looking at it, and all right, so people said to me, and a conversation I had with someone this morning was like, you know, what's broken? How do we fix it? You know, how do we even start looking at it? And
Yeah.
you know what? Who can you blame, right? So let's look at some of the things what gives these kids time on their hands and what encourages them to do this. Now, the first thing I've got to say to myself is, you know, because of the closures of places we had as young people where we could go to, if we were on the estate, it wasn't a problem. You had a community centre there, yeah, Vic, and that community centre had people in there who were actually real mentors, okay, real role models who kind of, you know, they were employed by the centre, they would work there, they would be able to give sensible advice and sort of, you know, keep an action and monitor on these kids.
Yeah.
If, let's say, the parents were working or were busy and they wanted to get them out of the house for a few minutes.
So there was a support network that you could put your kids into. Almost.
You had somewhere, Vic, you had somewhere, you had responsible adults. Now, kids now, as I said, number one, there is nothing like that anymore for them. So their mentors now are children, basically, right? Who are, you know, on the estates. If you're leaving kids to supervised kids, it's madness, because if there is no moral compass involved in the whole situation, you know, you're going to get bad breed after bad breed after bad breed. You're just going to get worse and worse and worse. And, you know, do you blame parents? You know, if, as you said, you know, if your child's leaving the house with a zombie knife or a massive machete sword, as a parent, you know, how do you stop that? But the reality is, do the parent even know they're walking out there with that? Because
exactly.
I know kids, you know, listen,
parent. Yeah.
My parents didn't know what I was up to.
If I wanted to get away with something, I would as a child. So
got it, right?
Yeah.
So you want to start blaming parents. Yeah, there are some parents which are terrible, you know, terrible examples, you know, who encourage their kids to do all kinds of stuff, which, you know, at the end of the day, that's a big root to problems. But what really kind of, what jumps out at me is this. The fact of the matter is how young people can just think it's normal or acceptable to do stuff like that. And as adults, all right, let's say people can say, oh, it's not my kid, so I'm not worried. But if you've got children or you've got nephews or you've got nieces, they could be in a park. They could be in a public open space when this thing kicks off. And there clearly is no respect for anyone or in that environment or in that attitude, because they don't care about the police, because you've never been running around a public park with a machete. Because all I frankly saw the other day when I saw that video, I didn't see a fight or a brawl. All I saw was one dead person on the floor, which is going to leave a grieving family behind him, and 7 or 8 kids are going to be spending the rest of their life in prison. That's what I saw, and that was through my eyes. And I'll tell you now, you know, and I hate to say this, but who really, you know, you're talking about police, right? Now, I don't have a go at the police, because obviously they do what they do, but to be quite honest to you, when kids are performing and behaving like that, in the back of your head you could be thinking, you know what, let them kill each other, get them off of the street, they're all going to be on social media, they're easy to catch, do you know what I mean? And they're going to be gone for the next 20-30 years, they're not a problem anymore. Now, as a young person doing crime and getting into this, right, it's the most, it's not even crime, it's stupidity. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing organised about it, there's nothing even, you know, you're putting yourself on offer to get nicked. It's like saying, come and arrest me. Do you know what I mean? I
think as well, like you were saying, you know, obviously you can't blame the police, they're doing their jobs or whatever, but I think the way their organisation is, like I said, that day that there was that stabbing in the park, there was over 100 police across the road dealing with people that were fighting for something they believed in, but no one was being violent, they were just protesting. But all these police are dished out on that morning to go out and make sure that this is a safe environment, when really we couldn't spare 2 police officers just to keep an eye on this big, massive park in them holidays. Don't tell me them kids weren't there for a group for a while. If I was in that park, you'd sense something was going to happen or it's going to be there. Now, if I was a kid in that park minding my business and someone stabbed me, what am I then going to do? I'm going to think I need a knife. So then what you've done is you've created this vicious circle again, because there could be innocent kids in that park that have then got hurt, that now feel they have to be walking around carrying because they got attacked.
What you said, spot on, Vic, because at the end of the day, when it's just trauma as well, when that happens like that, yeah, whoever's in that, old, young, whatever you are, you're traumatized by seeing an event like that, okay? And those events will stay with your life. Now, what example does it set to young people? It says, if I want to go out, I better carry a knife, because this could happen to me. So when we're actually sowing that seed, it's a bigger thing. Yeah. So let me tell you now, I spoke to someone this morning about it. What do you think is going to happen to anyone that wants to put on an urban music event? who wants to basically say, I want to put on a great big festival for my, you know, for my people, and I want to really make it a great film. I want to make it a
negative thing's going to be spun on it straight away.
You're never going to allow it. It's never going to happen. The police are going to turn around and say, you know what? They wouldn't want to say we're not going to let you do it, because that could seem, you know, racial. That could seem, you know, they're victimised.
But they'll do everything to deter it from happening.
They'll just turn and say they've got the right to bill you. So they can turn and say, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead with your festival. Obviously, we're going to have to police it. It'll cost you £2 million. And that's it. There is no event, right? Yeah. So I don't even think about promoters who you're going to put out of business. All those little people who've got a little Caribbean restaurant or that little business they've got and looking forward to that event, to go there, have their stall and make money, okay, and make really, really good money for that day or for that weekend. You just crippled them and their families, you know. So the bigger picture is it's a chain of events that they set off, okay? And they set a precedent, okay, which makes it terrible for everyone, you know? And when I tell people, you know, like, we want to change lives, we want to, you know, get in there and want to help people, and you see performances like that, right? It turns public against it anyway. They turn and say, what's this? This is like, you know, and they need help.
Want to become that negative, you know, spectating and being negative. You know, like people like us that want to make a change, it's also very easy to sort of give up in a way, because you feel, oh, well, I'm out here trying, I'm not getting anywhere. Well, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we know that. But right now, what we do know is what they're doing with society is broken. It's not working.
You know, listen, you know what it does, Vic, right? To be quite honest, you're right. What amazes me is you can't give up at any cost. We're here to make changes like that and to have our voice and actually, you know, to hopefully grow a better society and give young people opportunity that they can actually, you know, not have to feel they have to walk around with weapons, or they have to be involved in gangs, or they've got to do things in order to make themselves, you know, have the bravado, or have the money, or have the status, or, you know, everything that goes with it, you know, through doing stuff like that or being part of these situations. But you know, the hassle and the task that you have ahead of you is so great. But you know, how can you just go on the internet and buy a machete or a zombie knife or a bloody sword? How can you just go and get that, right? Okay,
you can buy a knife better than you can a pack of cigarettes. My niece can go into a shop and buy a knife, but she cannot go into a shop and buy cigarettes. Tell me how that is acceptable.
Exactly. You know,
you know, what 15-year-old is going to come in to buy a knife for their mum's carrots? Let's be honest. You know, how is it even allowed? You go on Amazon now, I could get my 8-year-old son to go on Amazon now and purchase something, not a problem. There's everything out there's available. Why is that? They're being funded. The market's being funded, you know.
Do you know what, Vic, as well, the worst thing is, for the past, 3 months since we started these lives and before, what have we been saying? You know, as soon as this lockdown finishes, it's going to be a bloodbath, because these young people have had no respect whatsoever for social distancing, right? Because you haven't seen them on the street, they've been sitting in their brethren's yard, up some estate, some flat, wherever they've been, playing PlayStation, and they've been on the social medias. They've been taunting each other, they've been aggravating the situation, and they've been creating real hatred amongst each other.
Because it's to be a keyboard warrior than it is with your mouth.
What do we think was going to happen? Did we think this wasn't going to happen? Do you know, we've been calling this message, say, listen, we need to get something in place now. Yeah. While they're locked down, you need to, you know, improvise, because when it opens up, it's going to be ridiculous. There's going to be so many reprisals. It's going to be a madness. And what's happened? You know, it didn't take a genius to work out what was coming.
Why is there 18 stabbings in a week? Let's look at this. Why, right? When we went into lockdown, if you had a job or you was in some situations, you came out all right. Like, some people went on certain wages, they actually benefited. They was all right. If you come from a low poverty family and you're on benefits, you didn't get no extra help in lockdown. You didn't get no funding, no £3,000 loans that some self-employed people do. Some people that go to work, they was getting little touches. If you're on benefits, they had nothing. So now they've got to sit at home all day and feed it, all that family all day. And you know yourself, when you sit indoors, you just eat, right? Yeah. So now you've got to feed a family. You've still got to clothe your children. You've got no means of leaving the house, making some extra money. These boys are hungry. They're looking at their family and they think they've got to find a way to feed their family. And that is easy money. So now everyone's come back out, the sun's shining. And I mean, you know, this is not factual. I can't source it 100%, but it seems to me from what a lot I'm reading, it's, you know, people are stepping on each other's toes because everybody's hungry. I mean, not every situation is the same that I've read, but a lot of this does come down to people out there trying to make their money, trying to survive, and that's the way they see they have to survive. And now we've got 18 plus dead. For what?
Yeah, but you know what I see as well with that whole thing, Vic? I see, you know, 18 funerals, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you now, let's forget about poverty, because you can't bury someone for nothing.
Who's
it takes
paying for
money.
that?
A funeral is expensive, right? And I'm going to be practicalities, because when I lived in Jamaica, people looked at practical stuff. When someone got killed or murdered, it wasn't a concern of just them getting killed or murdered. As horrendous as it sounds, people thought they've just plunged themselves further into poverty here, right? Because you've got the strain now of having to bury that person. And that may sound really cold, but it's a fact, right? And let me tell you what now you've got God knows how many kids, because all those that was on video the other day, they're all going to prison. They're all going to get life sentences, believe me, right? So now they become a burden, because guess what? They're going to be in there for 25 years. So what families they have got who still, you know, will not disown them and want to obviously try to help them in some way or the other, they've just landed that burden on to go up and visit them up and down the country, to have to send them money to put into their canteen, to have to send them clothes, because believe me, they're going to stress them out for clothes. They want a closed parcel because their friend's got these trainers. Do you understand me?
Yeah,
So
their
they just
life's
create a
over.
burden. If they've gone and killed somebody they don't like, that's fair enough. And people you say you love, people that's supposed to be your family, people that's supposed to be your supportive mechanism, you just put a burden on them. Do you know what I mean? It's
the
like...
thing is, I think even when I was younger, we grew up and we had olders and youngers and stuff like this, and you kind of looked up to your olders, but your olders were kind of in charge. And this is how I sort of saw it growing up. Now, there's no sort of higher hierarchy, and then there's a middle lot, and then there's no. Everyone's just running around fighting each other, trying to all be the big man. You know, there's always going to be someone bigger and harder than you. There's always going to be someone with a bigger knife. You know, you're going to ruin your whole life, someone else's family. That's it. It's over with. For what? Because someone served up on your patch, because someone done this to you. Your pride was hurt. So now we're all dead. For what?
You know what, Vic? It's over the minute they walk into them big metal gates.
Yeah.
Okay? When them big metal gates open, and they say, welcome to your no home for the next 25 years. Believe me, there's many bigger, there's many bad, there's many worse. Whatever you think you've seen, done, it's all been done before. Do you know what I mean? There's an old saying we got, it's called bad, badder, baddest. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's where that one ends. You know, and I just think to myself, you know, it's just, what have we done? How can this be a society that we call humane? How on earth can we, you know, look at ourselves and turn around and say, we've failed society, man. It's just, it's a complete and utter
when I
mess.
wake up in the morning, I look at our newspaper and it says broken Britain. I mean, it's not wrong, is it? But somewhere like the newspaper and the news, they're so good at highlighting the negative and like bang on about it. I never wake up to hearing, oh, we're going to put this in place. We're going to try these new projects. Like, I mean, years ago, people got sent to the army, right? You know, what was it called? Like a service thing when you did some sort
National service.
National service.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying let's all send them to the army and train them to go out shooting people. But what I'm saying is they've not even attempted to put no discipline in place. Like, it's just straight to the nick and you're left there just to get worse, basically. Well, mentally and physically.
Well, the thing is,
no solutions coming at us at all here.
Vic, the thing's this, right? You know, there's layers of work that needs to be done with these young people, because to get to that stage where you're doing that, okay, you know, I hate to say the word lost cause, but you're at the very end of the epitome of hell, because, you know, there must be a process that gets you to that stage where you can act like a fucking savage. Do you know what I mean? Towards killing another human being without no remorse, without no concern, without even good rhyme or reason. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And what I say to myself is, you know, the work with those young people needs to start maybe when they're 11 years old. Yeah. You know what I mean? It needs to be, it's got to be continuous. You know, and you know what someone said to me? Someone said to me, you know what, I think the best thing to do is cut off that whole generation as a lost cause. And I'm saying, how can you cut off a whole generation as a lost cause?
We'll never get any better if we just cut them like that.
But if people don't really step up and take responsibility and get involved and say, you know what, you know, how can we allow this to happen? How on earth to be in a situation, your child who's probably been never involved in trouble, never in anything, walks through the park, could get dragged into that? That could happen.
Could you imagine if you took a 14-year-old, say he just committed his first crime, maybe petty, and you took him into a prison and you walked him around with all the bad men and you showed him that this could be it, right? You see things like the experiments done like this in America, and they spend so many days in the jail, and trust me, when they get out, they're cacking it. They never want to go back. But it seems like to me we're not prepared to try anything, because all these bad boys want to go to prison. Well, let's get a group of them and take them to a prison. Show them. Let them spend the day there, and let's see how they feel when they come home. You know?
Yeah. You see, the thing is, Rick, right, I've been preaching this for years and stuff. It ain't no good letting them have a walk on the wing, because they get back to the state, or they get back to where they're going to. They're with their friends. They forgot about it. It becomes a big joke, even though in the moment they're frightened. If you want to do this thing seriously, you know, you need to put them in that space for a little while and let them really see what it is like, you know. And we're working on something right now, actually. We are working on something to give them that real experience.
We are, yeah.
And by the grace of God, that's going to be, you know, come together soon. And let's see, you know, if that actually sinks in, because...
Yeah, but at least we're trying to think of a solution. I feel like there's not many of us out here trying to do this right now. I'm reading the newspaper and everyone's just banging on about kids dying. I mean, let's get up, let's do something. Something needs to change, and something needs to change fast. You
know, as at the end of the day, as I said, you know, where'd you start? And you've got to start young. That's the only way I can think. And you've got to not just start young, you've got to reprogram these kids. And, you know, the biggest thing I'm saying to you is the housing, because you cannot put them back in the same environment. No matter how much you try to change them, no matter how much you try to do something which you think is positive, the biggest problem we're going to face is one that means the minute these kids are, you know, much good work you do with them, you put them back in the same environment, in the same estate, in the same, around the same people. As much as I hate to say it, they're going to fall back into the same traits. You've got to have an agreement, a Pan-London agreement or a Pan-Britain agreement, where if you generally want to work on the kids, you can lift them and move them. Because, as I said, this is a terrible cycle, and, you know, seeing it now. And now work, and, you know, all the other organisations that work with young people, their work is just becoming harder and harder.
But this is where like youth clubs and stuff come in. I'll give you an example. Where I live, in my community, a group of people that live there have started up like a football training camp, and all the young boys train 3-4 times a week, and they're all about 10 or 11, but they're all doing it together as a group. So they'll go through this together as a group. So you're not just working with one, and it's not just about teaching them not crime stuff. It's about giving them something to keep them busy. Showing them there's stuff to live for, taking their mind away from that. You know, it might not even be that you have to start working with them at 11 to do with crime. It's just about showing them a different path in life. You know, bringing them in that group and showing them this is the way forward, not this way.
You know what? You know the thing about it? We was Tuesday. Tuesday we delivered a course basically up at Careers Academy. You know, and that was basically on stockbroking. I had a friend, Nick Levine, who was a very, very well-known stockbroker. They described him as the British Wolf of Wall Street. And we had a group of young people there, and because a lot of young people now want to work, they look at cryptocurrency and these kind of things. They want to be traders. And we had a great session there, you know. We kind of took them through what it's like to, you know, look at that life in the stock market, become a trader, you know. And I saw the enthusiasm on their faces, you know, and the opportunity of actually being able to change your life in a dimension you couldn't even dream about, you know. And that filled me with hope. And then, you know, 2 days,
opportunities they didn't know they had.
Vic, and 2 days later I'm getting, you know, things like that sent to me on my phone.
Really? That is
and I'm thinking, how on earth has it come to this? You know, you've got to invest time in young people. And you've got to find out what is their passion. You know, Eddie Webber, my friend, the actor, he said to me, Andy, he said, you need to sit a kid down and say, what is your passion? What is your passion? And if they say, I want to be a rapper, I say, no, you want to be a rapper because your friend's a rapper. Yeah. What do you want to be? And it could be a mad as an astronaut or a racing car driver. You know,
but a lot of them don't know the answers to that because of their upbringing and what they're surrounded by. I think a lot of it is to do with if you're shown something, you can have your eyes open. But if all you know is you're mandem in the block, and doing what you do,
narrow-mindedness,
You're almost a victim yourself, aren't you?
You are. Come on, you know. Listen, this is how the grooming starts. It's so easily done. They're easily influenced. They're brought in because they think, you know, this person's their role model, you know, and they're bought for a pair of trainers. It's like, what is going on, you know? And it's, you know, honestly, you know, as much as, you know, I'm resilient, Vic, but it wears me down just to see it. And, you know, you beat your head against the wall sometimes and think,
I feel sad inside for my kids to grow up in this generation. I'm worried, you know.
I feel sad.
My niece asked to go to a park, and I normally go, yeah, okay. Well, now I'm like, I don't think I can do that, because how am I going to rest? I can't even focus when she's out of the house, because what's going to happen? It doesn't matter if she's into, you know, she's as good as gold, but it's not about that anymore. You can just so wrapped up in it.
You know, an experiment I'd love to do, honest to God, an experiment I'd love to do right now is, because those lot will get nicked, I guarantee you that. 1 year from now, they'll probably nicked in the next 7 days maximum.
Yeah.
Right? They'll be on trial in 1 year from now. They'll all get life sentences and they'll go into dispersal, okay? You know what I'd love to be able to do? From this moment, capture this moment and do a time log, right?
Yeah.
And capture it on film. That stage we've got them now,
yeah.
right? That stage when they do get nicked, that stage when they do get sentenced, and go back into prison in 5 years' time, or ideally 10, right? But maybe 5 or 6 is probably enough. And go into prison in 6 years' time, go and see them, show them that video, and tell them, how does it feel? Yeah. Now, you're 6 years into sentence, you've got another 22 more to serve.
This is what we need, the real experience.
And let them broadcast that. Broadcast it and let young people see that. Don't give them the glory, or the kids the glory of seeing that video out there and those kind of things out there, and not seeing what comes after that. Okay? You show the trial, they show the trial, it says you got sentenced to 10 years, 20 years. Go into a prison 10 years later, 15 years later, and show them and let them speak and let them say, I done that. What a mistake I made.
But this is the thing. This is how we get to the root of the problem, by working with the people that caused it in the first place. You know, if we go and talk to someone who's committed this crime now in a year's time, you know, I'm sure when you talk to somebody who's been there and who have done it, you will learn stuff from them. And I guarantee as well, a lot of these situations, right, you're seeing all these stabbings and you won't know the full story. But some of them, like I know for a fact, some of them, that person who is the stabber, who done the thing, they needed some help themselves. Now, what happens in the system? People slip through the system, and then they end up trying to kill someone, or they do kill someone, and then everyone pays attention to them. But no one gave a crap 6, 7 months ago when they needed the mental health in the first place. You know, it's all about starting it from the beginning. Like you said, getting in there young. You know, a lot of people end up behaving in a certain way because of the trauma in their life. It's not always just about the boy at the block that convinced him to do it. There's sometimes a lot deeper problems in there. But we don't have enough funding or people to help that. But we've got enough funding and people to chuck you in prison.
I agree, 100%. Vic, just see, I spoke to Dwayne from Road Light earlier. I don't know if he's on live. If he is, though, let's see if he's.
What was his name on the thing?
Dwayne Road Light. Let's have a look at his. Is he there? Because he works in prisons and stuff, delivering courses. And if he is around, and if he is on this live, he'd be a really good person, I think, to bring in and get his take on some of this stuff.
No, it's not coming up.
Oh, it's not on there?
If you are on the live and you can hear us, would you put a little comment in the comment box so I could add you?
Yeah, please, Dwayne, if you are on that. And I'd love to have you into this.
Lauren just said there, they're crying out for attention, no matter if it's good or bad, it's attention all the same. You're right. But if they're given the right attention from the start, then you wouldn't need to cry out for that attention in the first place. No, and this is what we're saying. We need to get in there. There's no point turning up now. They've been nicked. You know, right, we might be able to help them for their future to make better choices, but we're a bit late, really. It's happened. Yeah. So what we need to do now, we need to start working on this next generation or saving what we can.
You know, it's like, you know, Sadiq has always said to me the game's rigged, and it's so right in what he says. You know, they don't have a chance from day one. And, you know, I spoke to a psychologist once about this, and it was a really interesting conversation. He said that the attack for these kids happens from the womb. You know, if the mother's drinking or taking drugs, the child's on the defensive, is instantly on a defensive state of awareness, you know. So when that child's born, Vic, you know, all that child knows is to be, you know, constantly under attack. So it's always constantly defensive, you know. So when I don't know, let's say a privileged child's parents call him and say, you know, come you know, I want to see you. And they look in his eyes. Child's excited because it's good news that he's getting. It's positive, you know, thing. You're going on holiday, you know, something good's happening to you. But when a child who's coming from a background which is, you know, suffering, and they're going through that, probably just toxic at home, and that child's called by the parents, it's usually because they're going to get beaten or something bad. So straight away, they don't want eye contact. They don't want to, you know, they send all these signals, which is what it's always defensive. So their first interaction with the criminal justice system, and it can be nothing. They, you know, police can be coming by, and a few of them walking to football, and they just decide to stop them. But their reaction automatically to the police, because of the lack of eye contact, all these things sets off alarm bells. So their first interaction with the police can be a bad experience, because the police are taught, you know, when they're interviewing people, you know, to look them in the eyes to see if they're lying or not, to look at their hand movements. And a kid who's been brought up in that atmosphere and that environment is always protective. So he's giving off all the wrong signals. So his first interaction, or her first interaction with the criminal justice system, is a bad experience. Do you know what I mean? And that's a roadmap. Now, those are
but
things
like you just described, imagine that kid who's had that traumatic life, stabbed someone. Now he's the guilty party, but actually, is he the guilty party, or is he a victim himself? I
think, listen, there are no victors, and everyone is a victim. Everyone's a victim, because, you know, everyone's going to suffer and get the consequences. The person I feel, you know, great pain for is that child who's laying there dead, and his parents, people that love him, you know, he's laying in the morgue right now, you know.
Yeah.
And you've got to deal with that. And, you know, the kids who are going to be going to prison for the rest of their lives, you know, you're going to have to look at every single one of those personal circumstances and people now that they've affected. There's a massive chain there. Some of those kids have probably even got kids. And I'll say that now, you know, because kids are dropping kids 16, 17, 18-year-old.
But there is not enough support for parents.
So what happens to those kids? Those kids are going to be growing up, you know, with a parent missing. You know, it's just... But
that's looked upon as like almost looked down the nose at, where they're the people that need the most help. It's like the more money you've got and the more higher privileges that you are, the more you can have. Hold on a minute. If that parent that's asking for help and struggling with that kid at that age gets knocked back for help, and then 20 years later we're all slagging her off and not bringing up her kid right, it's not, the support weren't there for her from the beginning, so she was going to fail anyway. And I think
it's up to fail. Yeah, the system is rigged. You're set up to fail, you know. But unless we really do take a stand, in all honesty, and you've got to be brave on these kind of things, you've got to be brave, you know, and you've got to go out there with, you know, daring projects and turn around and say, look, it doesn't work. It's not working. It's getting worse and worse and worse. It's a downhill slide. And you've got to get people in now with deep lived experience, you know, the most troubled of the troubled. You've got to get them right. And when you get them right, then they hopefully can come back and they can get into the generation, into these kids' heads, you know, to say, I've been there, I've done it, I am that guy. Do you know what I mean? And you're not going to get those guys, you know, just coming off the street. You have to go into prisons. You've got to go into prisons where those are the guys who are 10 years into their sentence, 15 years into their sentence.
That's what we need.
And those were the guys holding those sticks, those batons and their machetes, chopping people up and killing them.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who have to be talking to these kids. I'm sorry to say it. The criminal justice system don't want it. They won't allow it. But it's the only way it's going to work. You have to be.
Would you bother listening to someone who didn't have the real life advice? Because I wouldn't. You're not listening
to someone who's got real life experience. But second to that, it's listening to someone on this side of the fence. They're not. It's still difficult. You know, the way you can really get to these young people is by lifting the curtain on it, just by actually going into jails, into dispersal prisons, where they're heroes. That's what they describe them as heroes, right? Okay, are serving their sentences, and get those guys to tell them the bloody truth and show
when
them.
the heroes tell them, actually, I'm not a hero.
Right, but they lock them off. But they're not allowed to contact Vic. You know, the criminal justice system, prison service won't allow that to happen. They're not allowing it because they're saying it to fix the victim.
But everything,
all kinds of reasons. But it's
all
only
falling apart. Why can't we just try it? Why not? Because we're so freaking outdated, and we're just like old school vet. Like, this send them in the nick. Surely, like, even looking at this week's evidence, something's got to give.
And the worst thing, the hotter the summer gets, the worse it's going to get, right? You know it. This is just the beginning.
Everyone's been indoors for a year and a half, right? Like we were saying, a lot of stuff's gone on online. So now everyone's out, they're bumping into each other. And like, you know, I'm not being rude, it's a lot easier to give it online than it is face to face.
Of course
So I
it is.
think a lot of stuff's gone on online. And now obviously the sun coming out as well adds to it. And I just think from June the 3rd, there's 18 dead. What are we going to be like by July? Half of us are going to have no family left.
It's ridiculous, you know. But when you get to the stage where you're thinking to yourself, you know, where is a place to go to? You know, where can you take your young people to your